Hello and welcome to the East Lampeter Township Public Meeting. All participants are now informed that this meeting is being recorded. This meeting is also being offered virtually utilizing Zoom, which is a cloud-based platform for remote video and audio conferencing. The Zoom application is free to the public. The general public is therefore able to join the meeting by connection through the internet or by calling in by phone. The public is also able to observe the meeting on the Township's YouTube channel. Please continue to check the Township website calendar for any updates related to these public meetings. Agendas for these public meetings will also be available on the Township's website. Please be reminded that this meeting is being video and audio recorded and will be posted to the Township's YouTube channel for viewing. The meeting will now proceed with the chairman calling the meeting to order and identifying all other members present in the meeting room and those joining the meeting via Zoom. The chairman will then confirm those members joining by Zoom can be heard.
Okay, welcome to the March 2023 Sewer Authority meeting. And members present are Brent Stolz, myself, Rick Robinson, Vinny Patel, Township Representatives Ralph Hutchison, Charlie Thomas, and Tara Hitchens. On YouTube there we have Fred Clark and Matt Seachy from engineering firm. I welcome you to join us in our pledge to the American flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under
indivisible, with liberty
and justice for all. We've had the minutes now for a week or so, and unless there's any additions or corrections, they're going to stand approved as written. Treasurer's report for the sewer, sanitary sewer.
I do.
Numbers, sure.
Sure. For sewer, we have a balance as of the end of February of $9,216.11. And we have, I'm sorry, that's the checks. The checks that are written are for the grand total of that number, $9,216.11. And then we have a checking balance at the end of February for $21,909.55.
Bills totaling 92.6.
Yes, that's right. That's that. Yeah, that first number.
Requisitions, Matt.
Thank you. There's two requisitions. The first 03-614. This is payable to Herbert Rowland and Grubick Inc. in the total amount of $12,039.78. That's for work on the Stauffer Run Pump Station improvement project, the State Route 30 bridge replacement, and the H2OPA grant application. The next is requisition number 03-615. This is payable to Fulton Bank, care of the City of Lancaster. This is for the wastewater treatment plant special and emergency capital improvements in the amount of $37,325.
Promotion to
Just one quick question.
Yes.
Requisition 03-614, Matt, what was the total?
I have $12,039.78.
Thank you.
Sure.
looking for a motion to pay the bills and requisitions for the sanitary sewer.
I'll make the motion.
Okay, we have a motion. We have a second. Vote.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So moved. Stormwater.
Yes, so for stormwater, we have a checking balance as of the end of February of $1,434,125.30. And we have checks that need written for a grand total of $14,342.88.
Motion to pay the bill for the stormwater.
I'll make a motion.
I'll second.
You have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So moved. Old business under sanitary sewer, capital borrowing.
I just wanted to report that the capital borrowing, the loan for the bank was settled on last Friday, the 10th of March. Everything was completed then. I want to thank the authority members for helping coming in and signing all the documents and getting it all ready. So appreciate that. Got done in good time. That's done and the money's available when needed.
Sounds good. Cedar Acres.
Got a report from Lancaster City last week. The contractor was finishing up with the storm sewer either late last week or the beginning of this week, and then was going to eliminate the laterals that went to the rain spouts. I haven't had a chance to check with Larry, the sewer superintendent, to see if that did in fact start this week. So it was also to be taken care of this week.
Who's doing it? Do you know?
Pardon me?
Who's doing it?
The contractor, SA Wade Plumbing.
Okay, now for run update.
I'll take that. This past month, no work has occurred other than the contractor dropping off some materials at the project site. They've submitted an updated schedule, which still shows the MCC gear to arrive in May, and generally work can't occur until that happens. So wouldn't expect anything else to happen for another 2 months or so.
Okay,
Want me to keep that on the agenda for now?
For now, yeah, I think it can be a quick update like we just did.
Okay.
okay, possible system extension on Strasburg Pike.
So at your last meeting, after discussing some of this, there were a couple of different thoughts. One was have HRG sort of go back and sketch out roughly what an extension would look like there. We expressed our staff's preference that if it could be gravity, that would be the case. And in addition to draft a letter to go out to all the property owners to survey them on their interests. First about the letter, well, I guess they're related. Looked at the design that Matt provided, attached to their report in small plan form. It's hard to see it that listed. It could be done by gravity all the way to Millstream Road, depending if there's a culvert that goes under Strasburg Pike as you get closer to Millstream Road. And depending upon the size and location of that culvert, may or may not be able to get past that to get all the way to Millstream Road. The problem in my view is that the hill north of that point would have the gravity line about 21 feet deep in order to get the grade necessary to get all the way out to the north. We anticipate that area is largely rock. And going that deep interstate highway in mostly rock, I don't think would be advisable. I'm not the engineer, certainly Matt can speak to this, but that'd be a tough and expensive undertaking. So I think if we're going to look at extending out through there, you go gravity for a little while, and then it would have to probably convert over to a low pressure system. That relates to the letter, because once we started looking at this, there's a lot of, what ifs and questions that have to be answered, and thinking in order for a property owner to feel comfortable in responding to a survey question of, are you interested in public sewer service? So it's like, well, how much is it going to cost? How are you going to do this? Do I have to have a pump that I have to take care of? Do I have to pay the electric for the pump? All these related things. So I think my thinking at this point in time is that we could send a letter out to all the property owners that could be affected by this and invite them to a meeting, and try to give them as much information as we can at a meeting setting where they could ask questions and everybody could hear the same answers, and go forward in that way. Probably see if Matt could again rub out an alternate design that would be gravity for some distance at a reasonable depth and over to low pressure. So we could look at that option. So I got a little bit stuck, I guess is the right way to put it, and wanted to have this conversation with the authority members to see how you wanted to proceed next.
If I'm able to share my screen, I don't know if that's possible here in this setting.
You should be able to, Matt.
Okay. All right, let's see here. Let me see, make sure I get the right one. Okay, are you able to see the map here?
Yes.
Yes,
Okay,
I can see it.
so this area down here is the sanitary sewer that currently exists in the ground. So manhole 3, which corresponds to this location, is where their sewer exists along Strasburg Pike currently. So that's the point that we have to hit. That's basically our starting point for the future extension. What we looked at was the resident or the property owner that came into for requesting sewer services on page 2. So they're on the other side of the hill. Here you're about station 1950, station 20. So that's their location of their facility. And this is the area of that existing stream and that culvert that goes across the stream. So we're not sure of the depth of that yet, but if that culvert is in this area here, that then prevents us from extending sewer beyond that point up to Millstream. So what Hutch was indicating is because of the depth going across this hilltop, we may be able to just have a line that's at a more reasonable depth that is not as deep, but on the other side of the hill, these homes over here would then require a low pressure connection in order to reach that elevation up at this level. The other thing that we're not sure of right now is where these houses sit. If you look along Strasburg Pike, the rear of their properties really drops off as it runs down to the creek. So if their existing on-lot system is on the backside here, that may sit a lot lower already than the Strasburg Pike. And in order to connect that by gravity, that connection there may make this extra deep in order to connect that house by gravity, where there may be a gravity main in front of them, but they may also require a lift pump in order to get from their low spot in the backyard up to the gravity line, just based upon the general grading there for Strasburg Pike being higher than the rear of these properties. Because it's likely that their on-lot systems in the back of their houses, but we're not certain.
I guess the other alternative would be when you get to the top of the hill, the gravity line to the existing would stop. Then you get on the other side of the hill and you have to go the other direction to that culvert, and then under Mill Creek to the interceptor on the park side of Mill Creek. Place gravity that way. So I guess we could look at that as an alternative as well.
That may require, I think it would likely require a siphon to go underneath the stream. And because we have a siphon downstream along the main interceptor line where that crosses. So if there's a siphon there, if a siphon is needed, I should say, I don't know if we would have the flow in order to keep that siphon flushed out, because there probably would only be limited flow here. If we don't need a siphon, that's also another possibility that, it's just gravity flow into the interceptor. We have to evaluate the depth of the creek in that area. Let's see.
What would be the time frame to get permits to cross that creek down?
I think the major permit, if we stay in the Strasburg Pike, is going to be the HOP. If we keep our disturbances under an acre, then we can minimize DEP's involvement. Although there is going to be a DEP permit here for the stream crossing if we go past the culvert as part of this project.
I was referring to if we had to go under Mill Creek with the site or gravity.
Yep. So for that crossing of the stream, you're probably, I would say, a 4-month time period for DEP review once they receive the application.
How close is that to the township line? Aren't you really close to township line there?
Going to the west, you're fairly close at that point. Going south, you're not really very close.
Is there any reason is there more to go from that crossroad that you would ever see it going further down Strasburg Pike? I mean, the township doesn't go that much further, does it?
It goes down to Rockville Road. But you're right. I mean, you get out into what's zoned ag when you get south of Millstream Road.
So is it really worth passing that culvert? Why wouldn't you just stop short of that?
Hutch, I believe at the meeting last month along Millstream here, you thought there might be a need for sewers in this area at some point in the future, if I remember correctly.
Yeah. There is a series of houses on the north side of Millstream Road from Strasburg Pike over to Gridley. Maybe there's 15 houses down there.
And don't they all have pretty steep backyards?
Yeah. All up against the creek.
talking about the creek, it would be on what I would call the west side of it. Doesn't the creek come in and when it goes across it at the mill, and it come back the other way? So it'd be on both sides of the road, the creek, right through there?
Through the section that we're talking
Is
about.
it too steep to put a line down along the creek?
There's an unnamed tributary right there. That goes under Strasburg Pike. There's-
Yeah, but doesn't the creek itself, like, it's on the park side, it goes across it, the mill,
Yeah.
and doesn't it come back along the back side and then houses on the other side of Strasburg Pike?
Yes.
Yes.
So it'd be low on either side.
The rear of those properties. Yes.
Just trying to.
Brad, to answer your question, I haven't looked at these properties here along Mill Creek to see if we could have a line in the rear. We'd have to take a look and, there likely would be a permit, but it's just a question of available space back there to construct it and maintain it. Once we get to Strasburg Pike in this area here, given the houses on both sides of Strasburg Pike, it probably, we may have to run parallel lines in that area.
Matt, were you showing on Millport Road?
I'm sorry, what was that, Charlie?
Were you showing first those houses along Millstream Road? There is a line on the opposite side of Mill Creek there. That's our
Over
interceptor.
here.
Yeah, that's our interceptor there.
Okay.
It goes to Fertility. We have a right-of-way easement right up behind, leads right up behind Lancaster Mennonite.
Yeah. So I guess depending upon the depth of the interceptor over here, it may be possible, if it's deep enough, to get a line under Mill Creek that picks up these houses in this stretch here with a line in the rear of those properties. It really comes down to the depth of the interceptor over here versus the depth of the creek.
Where on the map is the house that originally wants to hook up?
Right in there.
See where he is, see where his cursor is floating right now, right there.
Right where his arrows are.
Yeah, pretty much.
So if gravity sewer, if there was a desire to extend gravity sewer across this hilltop as far as you could go, what we would ultimately look at is requesting information or even visiting each of these houses along Strasburg Pike to get a good understanding of where their pipe leaves the home, understand that location and depth, and then we would design a lateral from that point into Strasburg Pike, assuming the sewer main was there. And then knowing that information, we can then determine the depth that's appropriate for a gravity sewer line across the hilltop. And then we can utilize that to make a determination of who can get a gravity connection versus who would require a low pressure sewer connection. Understanding that there is rock in this area, that can definitely escalate the cost of the construction, but knowing what type of rock that's there, is it rock that is it rippable with an excavator? Or is it solid rock that you're gonna have to?
You're gonna hit solid limestone.
Okay, yeah.
They
If it's
have-
that there, it takes a lot longer construction.
All along that creek channel, you're gonna hit solid limestone.
Yeah.
On the high sides.
Okay.
So 21 feet of a cut, It's gonna get really expensive.
I mean, I'm thinking maybe we better talk to the people. I mean, if nobody wants to pay for sewer lines or think they need it, you know, all this other stuff is just, we're looking into, I don't know, maybe I'm wrong, but that's the way I see it.
Yeah, I think a meeting would be, and I think you'd take all the Strasburg Pike people and then also take that Rockville Road loop up through there. If it's possible to get a gravity line behind them houses. Couldn't you take a gravity line behind them houses down around the corner and then take a siphon underneath? Yeah, right about where your arrow is.
Yeah.
Down out there.
We'd have to do further investigation here. I think the question is, I want to make sure there's enough flow that's generated into this area if we had to use a siphon to make that work. Because that siphon has to be self-scouring, and if they don't generate enough flow, then that's going to become a maintenance headache for township staff.
Yeah, I'm counting about 11 homes up through there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know for sure, but I'd be a little worried about accessibility back in those properties. But we could look at it.
Yeah.
Maybe we should investigate that further before we even would invite that road to the meeting.
Yeah. I mean, if gravity sewer is not feasible, then you do have the option of individual grinder pumps for each of those houses that they would tie into a line. And again, that could be in the front of the house, or that could even be run through the rear of the properties. And then you have a low pressure line across the street, across Mill Creek, that dumps into the interceptor as well. Or could be extended along Strasburg Pike. So that's another potential option.
Matt, do you think the question of serving the one property that came in to ask affects or has any relationship to what we would do for properties on Millstream Road?
If we were looking at, say, a combination of I'll call it a normal depth sewer up Strasburg Pike, and then a low pressure sewer on the downstream side of the hill. So if we had, a normal depth sewer up to the top of the hill, and then a low pressure sewer on this side of the stretch here, I think probably a 2-inch sewer main hutch that extends along Strasburg Pike and then even extends up Millstream to pick up these 10, 11 houses. I think a 2-inch sewer main is probably sufficient to be able to handle those in the future. So if the authority just wanted to extend to this point now and these houses at some point in the future, I think what they would put in now could handle that flow from Millstream in the future. Does that answer your question?
I guess. So we still have to be going under Mill Creek to connect all of those into the system.
Yeah, if you were to do this house here versus, this group of homes, I think you'd probably be looking at like a 2-inch line underneath Mill Creek to probably pump that into it initially. But my initial reaction is that 2-inch line could also be used to connect a number of these other homes here that would be on grinder pumps. If you were going to Mill Creek as well.
I guess. I guess the point I was trying to make is it doesn't have to be all one big system. It could be bifurcated and serving, portions in different ways at different times.
I think we got to find out the need. If there's a need, but if there's not a need, why go through it?
Right. The residents, I think the first question from the residents is going to be is how much will this cost me? So whatever we need to do to be prepared to answer that in a reasonable fashion would be what I think we need to do. If we're going to ask the question.
Other than the two houses that we talked about with that contractor who came in, does our enforcement officer know if there's any other houses that are having trouble or may have trouble?
Not that we've heard. We have, our SEO just quit working. So, we're in kind of a limbo situation right now. So we don't know what he knows. But I would not be surprised if there are other properties in this area that either have failing systems or are going to have failing systems.
So you're basically saying that this is going to come up today or maybe in the future pretty soon anyway.
Yeah, pretty soon is hard to tell how soon that might be, but at some point in time, again, as Rick was saying, the stream is on both sides of this area, and there's so much rock, and the properties most properties don't have much space to put in replacement systems. So yeah, it's at some point I think we're going to face this.
I mean, we're probably gonna have to come up with some sort of figure, low side and high side, and that's the best we can answer to these people.
Yeah, until we get deeper into it.
Right. I mean, if it's just one or two people that want it, and it's gonna limit it to like you said, piecemeal on a system together, basically.
As much as Bernie doesn't like grinder pumps, but
No, do what we gotta do, and that's why I hope when it is designed that the grinder pumps are at least on the side of the house, not to the rear, because if we have to do maintenance in the wintertime, it's gonna be crazy to try to get back to these systems, try to do maintenance on them. Keep that in mind.
And I believe Hutch, it was previously talked about that on previous authority extension projects, because I don't think we've done one since I've been involved with the authority. The cost of that extension is basically borne by those being served. It's not necessarily distributed amongst all the users.
Don't you have to create a sewer district for that?
Well, the way it's been done in the past is by front foot assessments.
If you extend it to the system, it gets thrown in with the whole system. If you have a different set of costs, can't you create a separate sewer district and then they would have separate fees?
Yeah. I mean, typically I've seen that for areas where the operating costs are dramatically different. In this case, it's just the capital cost of putting in this extension.
Right.
And that's typically been done by, front foot assessment to allocate the cost to those that are having their properties improved by the availability of sewer.
Could we at least start by having staff or engineer staff go door to door and find out, get names, addresses, and contact information, and do they even know if they have a problem or not?
Well, the contact addresses for the owners, we've got all that stuff. The question of, asking them if they know they have a problem, we could do that.
Would you know where it ties in? Or we wouldn't, basically the on-lot's in the back, right, of the house, I would assume, or maybe to the side of the house.
That would be my guess.
Some of the older property files don't have drawings of the on-lot systems, some do. That'd be a place we can start to pull the property files up here in the office and just see if there's something. When they're
There could be 20-year-old on-lot systems that are working perfectly well. If this comes down to there's one failing system or two, I can't see spinning your wheels for this.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, that's fair. I mean, ultimately, if those property owners just have to deal with whatever they're dealing with, then the authority doesn't, have to move. But if it's a wider problem, then you're going to be drug into it.
I seem to recall when I first was a member of this sewer authority, somebody talking about sewage percolating. I thought it was on what I would call the west side of Strasburg Pike. When I first became a member of this board, somebody was here talking about, it was basically seeping into the Mill Creek from one of them houses along there. But that's, I don't know, 20 or 25 years ago now.
And I agree with you, Rick. I was there. I mean, I remember talking about this section of Strasburg Pike many, many years ago, but I have no idea why.
Yeah, I just don't recall.
Yeah, as Charlie said, we could look at the files and see if we have any information on any, new systems that have been put in the past number of years, or.
But like Fred says, if it's only one or two properties, I mean,
Yeah, I guess.
I don't think we want to force the hand to all the other property owners along there.
Maybe if I was checking the files, we might be able to see that, oh, this guy just replaced it, or this person put a new one in, and we might come up with a percentage that says, hey, out of all of these houses, maybe only 5% haven't replaced it. Everybody else seems to have replaced it and it's working.
Yeah, we could start there, check it out.
If
There's only a couple of small lots on that drawing, small lots.
where the cursor is the property in question that the plumber came to the meeting for. So if the grinder pump was installed for that property, and let's just say we ran it across Mill Creek to dump into the interceptor, I think we just need an easement, as Hutch, I think you alluded to a couple meetings ago there with crossing the mill, because that's owned by an individual, and then an easement with the township for that. We would need a permit for the stream crossing, but that would likely be directional drilled for that, and hopefully that would help minimize the permit cost. And that could be an individual style solution where there is a low pressure lateral, in essence, that's drilled across the stream, extended onto this property with a grinder pump there to provide a solution to that one house.
That triangular lot to the right of him, nothing's built on that, and that's a triangular lot up against that stream. Probably owned by somebody else or owned by the neighbor.
I think it's owned by the same person that owns this property in question.
So why wouldn't he have space, or is he too close to that stream to put a system in?
Yeah, I think the separation distance is are the problem.
Mm.
And I guess the other thing I would say, if this house had a grinder pump installed and the authority did a project in the future, if this line was to go away in the future and a connection be made on Strasburg Pike, I think that same grinder pump could be utilized to connect out there if need be in the future. Or this becomes more of a main connection point over if that serves additional houses there in the future. So.
I really think we got to find out whether there's need or not.
I agree.
Okay, so we'll look at the files, see what we can see there. With the, I expect the new SEO to be appointed next week. Would you want us to send him out to do an investigation of other properties out there?
Yeah, I don't think it would hurt for somebody even just to walk down along the backs of some of them. I mean, people aren't always honest when it comes to when they have to spend money.
No, but I mean, getting onto people's property, you have to get permission.
Yep.
To do that. So,
You can go for a walk in the park and pretty much look across the stream and figure it out.
many times as I've done. It's awful wet down there, though. Okay. Cool. That's helpful. We'll try to get the authority more information.
And I did tell the plumber that we were going to be discussing it at this meeting, probably what I'll do instead of trying to explain it, I'll try to watch the video on YouTube to see what the discussion was about. And that's probably going to be the easiest.
Treehouse up.
Solicitor emailed us again this week, and Treehouse has entered into a contract with Kleins to videotape that line from just west of their property all the way to Mill Creek. So they're going. We didn't get a date when they're starting yet, but both attorneys were talking. Treehouse is going to follow through with their video. See what it looks like after they're done.
Any other old business or cemetery sewer? Old business under stormwater. New business under sanitary sewer. City's flow monitoring project.
We've resolved the issue of how the costs are going to be shared as far as the flow monitoring is concerned. You'll see a requisition related to that. The city has asked us to do some more investigation on the meters, the meter pits at Newport and Susan Avenue. We're in the process of gathering information on the meters and the flumes, and their concern is that those aren't recording all of the flow correctly from our system.
Is there a company that checks those things?
Yeah, the guy or the company that's on our meter calibrations every quarter. Do that.
They're certified as inspectors also. And Matt, you've had conversation with that, correct?
Yeah, the company is called The Meter Guy, and he actually just responded to us yesterday, Dave Moore, and provided comments on information on the type of meter, type of flume that is there, as well as the electronics. So we have that information now, but with that, he also shared that the electronics, which is the ultrasonic transducer, he believes the ones that are there were installed back in the 1990s, and that version of meter electronic sensor stopped being manufactured in 2002. He said, that was state of the art when it was installed. He's had good, that's been a good meter, but he said they are starting to see some reliability problems, particularly with the one at Susan Avenue, which has some issues with temperature and wire splicing. And he recommends that those electronic sensors be replaced here in the future to help alleviate those concerns, because he thinks those issues may be contributing to the error or the discrepancy that's being shown between your meter readings and what the city was reporting. So he said, there's new technology with radar instruments that are more reliable now, that he would recommend being looked at for investigation. So,
Sounds expensive.
The township staff has replaced some of the pump station sensors in the past with these new radar sensors. So I'm not sure their cost, but I know they've been used already. But that doesn't answer your question there about pricing, but something that can be investigated. Well, like I said, we just got the data yesterday from him. We're going to be taking a look at it and, compiling it and passing information back to the city in accordance with their request. But also with this line item, as Hutch mentioned, there is an escrow agreement for your consideration this afternoon. It's the Conestoga Gardens Pump Station and the Stevens Avenue Interceptor flow monitoring and capacity evaluation. We've discussed this previously, but it covers the flow monitoring and capacity work being performed on those interceptors. A copy of the escrow agreement is included with the engineer's report, and the authority share is 64.64%, or $128,456. So this just covers the investigation of the flow meter, flow monitoring, and capacity evaluation. There will be a separate escrow agreement based upon the inspection work that is required, which will be the next phase of the project.
I think the city is to amend this agreement rather than creating another escrow agreement when that time comes for the cleaning and inspection part of this project. But in the meantime, we would ask that you consider favorably the escrow agreement.
Just looking for a motion. I'll make a motion to approve the escrow agreement.
I'll second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Great, thank you.
Capital projects.
I believe that may be related to the funding application that was submitted. There were some questions that came through from the funding agency Commonwealth Financing Authority, DCED. They're reviewing the application. We had worked with Hutch to get those addressed and responded back to the reviewer on those. So that's, I believe we've addressed all outstanding questions, and now we're just waiting on that program's review of all their applications they've received and decision on determination. But I think unless the authority staff feels differently about advancing, say, the Oaks pump station elimination projects or any of the others, the thought was to wait until an award was made or a decision on award, because any work that's done prior to that is not eligible for use as matching funds for any potential grant award.
And how long does it go until you find that out?
What I've heard is it's supposed to be summer timeframe, July. That's my understanding right now, but I will say, there was supposed to be a previous award of a different funding program back in October, I believe, or October, November time period. That's been delayed and still hasn't been awarded yet for some of the local share money. So. But I know this money here also, this application that was submitted, this money has a end date dictated by the federal government when the money needs to be used by. So I think, they need to make determinations on how they're intending to award in order to help meet that schedule.
I mean, it's okay. We're not under the gun to get anything done if we wait a little bit longer. I do think that federal money will have a timeout time, and I think a lot of that's going to be negotiated in this year's budget. So I think it'll happen quick this year. Not quick, but sometime this year.
Okay, any other new business under sanitary sewer?
The only other thing I wanted to bring up just for your information is PennDOT's doing, you may be aware of that improvement project to the Route 30, 462 corridor area there. I think maybe it's called the Western Gateway. Yeah. So they're at the stage in their project where they've started reaching out to utilities to start getting information on all the utilities in the project area. So we've provided them some initial information for their efforts, and based upon that, they've issued to the authority here an authorization to proceed with preliminary engineering. And I included that letter in your packets. But ultimately what they're going to be looking for is, there's going to be more engineering or more information from PennDOT and their consultant coming down. And they're ultimately going to be looking for a letter from the authority or that authorizes engagement of a consultant there to assist them for that project. And that's similar to what's been done on some of these other PennDOT jobs we've been working on. So it's basically in the early stages right now, but as PennDOT moves their design effort along, we'll be looking to see if there's conflicts with what they're proposing with any of the existing lines. I did let PennDOT know about the potential Oaks pump station elimination project, which would install a new line across Route 30. So I advised their consultant of that and the information we've provided to them thus far.
Okay, so we just have to approve this, or you just notifying us?
This is notifying notifying you right now. And it's saying that any of these items that are done may be reimbursable, so start tracking those costs. But I think next month, I can come back to you with the paperwork that says you'd like to engage HRG to be your consultant for these efforts as well. And that would then get submitted to PennDOT for approval.
Matt, it's the same before, the sewer line relocation down to Bob's Culvert, right? Just east of
Correct.
south. Yeah.
Yep, same process.
Matt, this might be a question for you. So while this project is going on and we're talking about eliminating oaks in the future, would it make sense to put a pipe under the road at this time? Or at least look at possibly, so in the future, if we eliminated the pipes already there, we'd have to go back and tear up that road again? Or try to bore underneath or anything? Just a thought.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely something that should be evaluated, Vinny. I don't know the work that PennDOT's doing, if they're doing complete reconstruction or, changing grades. They, depending upon their work and how they sequence it, they may allow an open cut crossing, or they may still prefer a board crossing. So that's some further consideration we'd have to have with their consultant team during this process.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, you have to obviously make sure you put the pipe in the right location and applications so that in the future, when you're trying to tie to it, it all works. So, the design effort to get to that point, might need to happen before we hear about the grant. So we'll wait for more information from Matt.
And Hutch, you may have a better idea. I'm not sure if PennDOT's schedule as far as when they're actually looking to go to construction, if that's...
The current schedule that I've seen is that they want to let the 46230 job in late 24.
Okay. So there's a little bit of time. I mean, there might be a couple months there, but I think there's also going to be easement negotiation with property owners on both sides of 30 there for a new pipe coming across and everything else that will take some time and could also factor into where that pipe is ultimately located across 30.
I guess the authority can condemn those easements. So, we should try to negotiate them, but ultimately, if it has to go where it has to go, then.
Right. Okay. I know the one side is the state police barracks, so I'm not sure how that process works with the Commonwealth, that agency.
We have a good relationship with them. That should go easy.
Okay, sounds great. That's everything I had on the that item.
Any other new business under sanitary sewer? Form on new business. Update on MS4.
We continue to revise the PRP, which is the pollution reduction plan. I'm going to try and actually spell these things out for the public that may actually watch this in the future. And then as we were doing that, we got a number of comments from PADP, Department of Environmental Protection, who indicated that the I2 capital projects that we had entered into needed further information. I2 Capital had multiple meetings with Department of Environmental Protection and Department of Ag, and the department within DEP that focuses on ag, because originally they were told they needed to write second conservation plans for all of the properties they were dealing with in order to allocate how much sediment, nitrogen, and phosphorus was actually being removed from the properties after meeting the 102 and 91 requirements of each farm. That's insanity. So it came down to they need to write an addendum that shows the calculations that are above and beyond the requirements of the farm. So we're waiting for that information from them so that we can put that into the PRP. We do look to submit the PRP to DEP by the middle of April. That said, if you're okay with moving on to the next item right away.
Yep.
The HAC update, we have received the Army Corps of Engineers, the Lancaster County Conservation District, and the PAD permits for that project. The bidding documents have been completed. We're working on the legal agreements and the operation and maintenance agreements with HAC. And we hope to have everything ready to move to you all to put out to bid at your April meeting. The design for Oscar's Pet Resort for the stream bank restoration along the back, I'm going to say the back side of the property. It's kind of the northeast side of the property. That has been finalized, and Charlie and Colin will be meeting with the landowner at the end of the month to go over that plan with the landowners to move that forward. That's all I have right now.
Are we spending enough money for DEP?
Well, as soon as we have an approved reduction plan, we will have the payment to I2 Capital, which is $750,000. And as soon as we put the bid documents out for HAC, we'll have spending funds. We'll be spending funds then. I don't know how much that will be at this point.
Wasn't that part of our?
It was part of the intention of the funds, yes.
Yeah, I think both of those projects, there's going to be a lot of money moving out to get us our credits there. So, yeah, we didn't expect to be sitting on the balance that we have right now for this long, just because of the hurdles we've had to jump over. But it's good that we have those funds available so we can get these projects done.
Thank you. Any other business?
Just for your information, there's been no public comment.
So there's no public comment. Motion to adjourn. Motion, and we have a second from Brent here. Thank you, everyone.
All right, we'll see you next month.
Yep.
Everyone.
All right, see you. Bye.